This is another Counter-Strike Go edition of our esports breakdown. Today we have a guest, Sean from Fantasy Alarm and Fantasy DGens. Really excited to have him on. Just another person to talk Counter-Strike Go with in the DFS world. He's really taken on an awesome perspective on the DFS side, really digging into the maps. So we're really pumped to have him on to talk about tomorrow's slate. How's it going, Sean?
Good, man. Thanks for having me on, Chris. Good to meet you. Like I said, we kind of first started talking here not too long ago and just kind of chatting. And then you said, hey, you want to come on? I was like, yeah. I mean, I'd never try to turn down, talking, especially with Counter-Strike, fantasy sports, anything. So I was more than happy. Yeah, I'm glad to be here, man.
Awesome. Yeah, well, I think every day of this DreamHack Masters has been, what I really loved is it's just like 3 games. They're super spaced out. Right. You can really watch it all day. You're not, I don't know. I don't like when I got to flip between 2 or 3 things or game log one of them and watch the other one. So before we start, just some, I'm going to start from a Counter-Strike Go perspective, DFS. You've been really focusing on the map picks. What's your purpose in really focusing on the map picks, and how do you think that helps in the DFS side for people that are listening?
Right. Well, it was just something that I started finding more interesting, and the way it kind of correlated with, we kind of talked about a little bit a second ago with the success of some teams. And that's what I kind of try to include in my articles now, is trying to really nail down those maps, because a lot of the times it is a big strategy part for these teams. They know what teams are doing good on what maps. They know what players are typically really good on those maps as well. So finding those kind of edges, I think, can give just a very slight advantage if you're finding the map picks you think that are more than have a chance to be the map choices, especially those first 2 map picks. They're really big most of the time. And a lot of teams, the smarter teams, they'll play the strategy for it. So kind of trying to game theory and try to break that down, I think it gives a whole new element to just looking at individual stats and, just saying, well, this person's or this team's a minus 300 favorite on the money line. It's just another angle that I kind of picked up and started kind of researching a little bit more and thoroughly. And then now I've kind of been implementing it, and it's actually paid off pretty nicely. So.
Yeah, I definitely think the first look for every casual player for sure is the money line. And we're seeing just as more pros from other sports are moving over to esports because it's just the availability. You're seeing a really popular 3-3 stacks with 2 big favorites, or the 2-2-2. But I do think the perspective on map picks is definitely an edge that can be made. And I think the content you're providing on that is phenomenal, because it not only shows the teams, but also the individual players who excel at certain maps. What do you think? One more question on this, like the probability, of you actually nailing those map picks. Is it feel like it's like a 70-80% just based on what they normally do? And
yeah, and that's the big thing is, and that's why I kind of try to look at, their second bans, and because a lot of times they will play strategy and they'll ban that first map pick of the other team because they know that they've been really good on it. When prior to that, they would have been banning a map that they have been banning at a very very high clip. But they'll play strategy and then take away one of the first map picks that you're like, oh, well, I really thought that was going to be the one. So it's not something you can get every single time. And I'm still trying to figure out what team, because I thought, it started with the home team getting to be the first ban, and then the other team get the next ban and then first pick. But that's not always the case. And I'm not exactly sure what dictates that. I don't know if they flip a coin to see who's going to be on it, or if it's, that's who gets the first ban, first map pick. But if you could obviously figure that out, which you can't, because obviously you're not going to know. So right. More so it's just trying to and a lot of teams will be more clear cut on the ban maps.
Yeah.
I mean, some of them are 95%, and that's going to be the ban. And then, like I said, it's just kind of trying to figure out what way they're going to go. If they want to play strategy, or if you think they're going to play to their strengths, which would be the maps that they usually pick. So I have done well. I've nailed a few of the maps. So it's kind of, like I said, it's a double-edged sword. It can burn you every once in a while. And that's why also I know we talked about the monkey knife fight picks. I kind of use those props as kind of a looking to see where they're at as far as player, kills go.
Yeah.
So everything kind of factors in.
Yeah, I just love the angle, the map pick angle. I think it's an avenue that I want to continue to explore as well. And I think that you can give yourself an edge on a field that is just basing it off of odds and money lines. So as we get into tomorrow's slate, we did get a change. So if you're looking at by the time you probably watch this, it's probably updated. But we will talk a little bit about Navi and Vitality. Navi is listed as a minus 155 favorite. We obviously know that there's 2 carries on both teams, or there's 1 on each team with Simple and Zaiwu. I'm kind of curious how to see how DraftKings prices on both. I would assume Simple will be a little bit more than Zaiwu, but you have Nico was already priced at 10.4 before they reprice. Are you targeting either of those 2, or maybe kind of the best question is, are you targeting either of them? And when these players are at 10,000, what is it worth it? You know what I mean? Like Nico today probably wasn't worth it, because a lot of players easily match his score for $2,000-$3,000 less.
Yeah, and that's the hard part. When you're paying up for a guy like Nico or even Zaiwu, I mean, the difference in the team makeup with Vitality is that you just mentioned he's their team, basically. I mean, he's the guy. I mean, so whenever you're looking at a team like FaZe, who also has Coldzera and Rain, and, I know they just got off of Olaf and brought in Bymass, but the thing is they have a lot more players that do well consistently, I should say. Whereas you got like Vitality, who really relies on Zaiwu, Shocks, APX every once in a while, but the big focus is on him. And so really what you're really hoping for is that he just totally obliterates both maps and either they win 2-0. And that's the only other problem with – I hardly really ever 3-stack Vitality just because I don't think the 3 other guys can score that well.
Right.
Whereas like a FaZe, you can usually rely on 3 or 4 of their guys. So I think that's something that you always have to look at, especially when you're paying up for those kind of guys. And most of the time, Zaiwu would just be like a one-off for me in my lineups where – I use a little bit of value off the map choices that I was talking about. A lot of times you can find the value guys that are doing really good on those maps that sometimes are doing way better than the big names. So you can find that value. Like Stico today, I mean, he's been at the top of both projected map picks that I did for yesterday and for today, which that one's off, of course. But he just had monster numbers. And then they went to 3 maps today with Fnatic. I know they got crushed on the last map, but he had a really good first 2 maps. So a lot of the times you can find really good value guys that you can then have for those one-offs like Zaiwu, Nico, and even Simple, which, Navi has not looked really good lately, losing the last 2 matches. So that's kind of the way I look at it. I kind of think more of just trying to find my 3-man stacks before I do anything. And that kind of helps me piece where I want to fit in those big names.
Yeah, and I think that's a great perspective. And I do think when I kind of heard you being on Stico, I kind of try to compare to like at what point do you take an underdog because the value's there versus just completely punting, say with Bymus or even JW on this last site. He was more expensive, but somebody that's relatively close in price that's more of the 4th or 5th player on the team compared to somebody that's an underdog but actually a better player overall.
Right. And that's where I think you get I'm only a tournament player. I don't play cash. I just play tournaments. That's all I've ever really played.
Yeah.
I like to find those edges with those, guys that are going to be less owned. And that's the thing is finding those 2 or 3 options or the 2nd or 3rd options on those teams that can outperform their main guys. And they, on a certain map, if you're seeing that they're doing well on those maps, you can take a shot. You can take a shot with them with the captain and then stack around, and you can even still that's the biggest thing and where I've found a lot of my success is actually, I think I had a slate where I'd use Brokey in like a ton of my, captain spots. Ended up winning like $3 or $4 grand that day because he went off and had over like 100 as the captain spot. Also had Nico in there, but more so it was because you found that low, and he was only like 16% owned on a 3-game slate or 4-game slate.
Yeah,
so
that's awesome.
It's finding those 3rd or 4th options that have the opportunities there to actually really score high. And the matchups, of course. So I think that's, it is something that, especially if you're playing tournaments, you've got to differentiate yourself. There's those guys that you kind of just have to plug, that you have to plug, but then being different is where you make your money. So
Awesome. Yeah. So I think if you're thinking about tomorrow's slate, anybody watching, I think it's going to be pretty tough to play Zaiwu and Simple and consider Nico. Nico probably will be the, if FaZe is playing Fnatic, they're only a slight favorite. So at 10-4, I probably would probably pass on him. But depending on how the pricing comes out on Zaiwu and Simple, I think they had probably great tournament plays. But like Sean said, probably the only player you likely want to consider from either teams, or really avoid a three stack. I know Shox had a couple good games there at the end of the Road to Rio tournament.
Yeah.
He also had a game in there where he was negative going into the third map. So
Exactly.
they're very volatile. I know when you play with those teams. I actually like targeting the other teams against them and still sometimes playing their carry because their other guys seem so kill friendly that like they just wait till Zaiwu tries to clutch a situation, and Zaiwu hangs back and tries to pick people off, and then once everybody's dead, then he goes in for the clutch. So yeah, so that's kind of I think where we'll leave that game. Our next game is FaZe and Fnatic. FaZe coming in at -130, and Fnatic at basically even odds as the underdog. Both teams kind of with a just crazy day. FaZe kind of getting bailed out with Mur dropping from the server. I think,
Yeah.
I don't know what would have happened at the end of map 2, but I think map 3 would have been a lot different having Mur in there instead of Dima, especially in overtime when Dima looked pretty awful. But
Yeah.
so in a close matchup like this, is this something again where you probably look at what you think the map picks will be, and that will give you kind of this side of which way you want to go?
Yeah, and I mean FaZe has been playing so well, and yeah, today they I definitely think they got lucky with him. His internet crashing out. I do think that a lot of people. I think this will be one of the more popular games. Obviously, you got two of the bigger name teams here. They're both playing each other. I think a lot of people are going to either. I think a lot of the main stacks are going to be with these two guys. I mean, I think a lot of your three mans are going to come from Fnatic and FaZe, and then I think they're going to probably piece in with some JenG and maybe like I said, JenG mainly for me. But what I think about the maps though, and what I had found is they're pretty clear cut. I mean, FaZe is pretty much picking I think Mirage at a very high clip. They're winning there a lot, and Nuke. Fnatic is banning Nuke a lot, and Vertigo was being banned by FaZe a lot. So I think we throw those out. The other ones I found was Dust 2 and Mirage, which both are respectively doing pretty good in their own map picks. So I really think this could easily be a three map array here, is what I think, to be honest.
I think the pricing, and this is what I always like get amazed about, like the pricing changes so drastically. We had Cold Zera at 9,000 2 days ago. He then drops below Brokey today. Brokey goes higher than him. And then tomorrow, we have Brokey at 7.4, Cold Zera at 7.2, Crims at 7.6, who I think will be really popular just based on the last 2 days where he played really well.
Yeah, he did.
I guess he's an underdog. Maybe he won't be that popular in cash at least, but may be more popular in tournaments. But then Brawlin all the way up to 9.8 seems a little bit too expensive for me in that spot.
Yeah, he's too steep for my liking for sure. I don't
right, and then Flush.
He had a good last map here, but his first two maps were.
Yeah, I think everybody had a good last map there. I don't think everybody just kind of crushed it.
It was
Flush
pretty much a crush.
Yeah, Flush at 8.6, I think is I still think a little expensive. So I would in this matchup that expecting to be pretty close. I think I'll probably hang out in that mid range with Crims, Cold Zera, and Brokey. I think Bymus is still pretty cheap, 5.4. He's looked good, but I think he's just not getting enough of the market share of the kills to probably ever like he's not going to even probably have a map where he's even top 2 just with Nico, and it's pretty difficult in Cold Zera.
Yeah, and that's kind of what we were talking about with wanting to play Nico. It's so hard, whenever you got guys like Cold Zera and Rain that have been stepping up a lot more lately, especially with Olaf gone now. And yeah, Bombus is just not really getting what you need. I mean, I know he's really, really cheap, and he could be an easy, third stack if you want to go there for sure. But totally agree that he's not getting what you need.
All right, and then we'll move into our last game here. Evil Geniuses minus 155 against JenG. Again, these lines I'm looking at pretty early. They definitely could move. Like we've seen a lot of lines move here over the course of 24 hours, 18 hours. Evil Geniuses coming off of the game against C9, in which they lost, right? They lost in 3 maps. Yeah, they dominated, I think, that first map and then lost the next 2. So yeah, what are your hot takes here for Evil Geniuses and JenG?
What I found in my article that I put was that the projected maps that I found, I favored JenG a little bit more. I mean, I think that both of their first map picks were pretty good for each one. Uh, and then when I started looking at the individual stats, and it was yesterday or the day before, whenever they played, I guess it was yesterday, Cirque had been atop of like both all the map picks that I looked at. And again, he's at the top of both of the ones that I did for today. So him being 6'8", where a lot of people are going to go Breeze, we already know that he's the main guy for EG. I think Cirque is going to have a lot of value. He went for 71 even in that loss. So that's one thing that I saw that I thought was pretty good as far as the price wise went. And then even with JenG, I found a lot of Psalm is actually projected quite high. I mean, as far as the map picks go. And then also Automatic, which he's kind of more pricey, but he has really good numbers too. So those are kind of probably the guys I'll look at. I do like JenG in this one. I think that they're going to win this one. But that's kind of where the value I'd be looking at is probably Cirque, Psalm. I like Bentet. Kusta has some really good numbers, and I'm actually probably going to be on him where I wasn't the other day because I thought he was priced a little too high, but his price is kind of where it needs to be now. So that's kind of where I'd be looking at. And I think JenG would actually be a pretty decent 3-man stack too.
Nice. Yeah, I think JenG's prices, even like today's slate, with Automatic and Kusta and Bentit, or however you say his name, or think had it pronounced right, all were like 7,000. You could easily just stack those guys up and make a nice stack here. And I think reading your article and just kind of trying to look on my own, it seemed like the map picks were probably going to favor JenG here more than what the odds kind of suggested against 100.
Yeah, and I was kind of shocked whenever I saw the line was that high. I really thought it would be either closer to even, or I really thought that JenG would be favored. So I thought it was pretty crazy. But I mean, I guess maybe they're thinking of a bounce back here for EG. I mean,
yeah, EG kind of fizzled out at the end of Road to Rio too. So I mean, there haven't really been. It's kind of like Mouse and all these teams that I don't know if it's the LAN versus the online play, which I think definitely figures into a lot of this. And even when I was talking with Hodge and some other people about this, it's like when some of these teams at least are quarantined together, so they're like playing in the same rooms, where some of these teams I know like G2 are still just playing at their houses, and same with Team Liquid, so they're not even in the same area where Astralis and I saw, they had the video on Chaos and North, and some of these other teams are at least still in the same vicinity, that they're able to have that team feel, and the coaches are able to, feel like
they're right there.
Yeah. So I think that definitely.
I think that obviously helps the team chemistry a little bit. You're being right there next to the guys. I know they're talking to each other, constantly, but being right there in the same room, and I think that does help a lot. I totally agree.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that you kind of hit on the same thing. Cirque was my favorite first kind of option from this game, to either from a cash or tournament perspective. I think in cash he's going to be pretty popular, especially if the line holds with Evil Geniuses, being a pretty decent favorite here. And same with Breeze. I think both of those, again, you're looking at Breeze as a bigger favorite, cheaper than Flusha, Brawlin. I think that will definitely garner a lot of ownership, which I think in cash games, that's definitely fine to go. But I do like your take here for GPPs, where you can get to Cirque, and then possibly, I can really hard to believe that people are going to go to Ethan tomorrow after what his performance yesterday, but you got to know that long-term, like that's not really what he's going to give you.
Guys are going to have bad games, it's inevitable, but I'm glad you brought that up, because he was actually like second and third, I believe, on both of the projected map picks that I kind of looked at for today. or so for tomorrow, I guess I should have said. But yeah, he actually is one of the top, 3 options for me still. I mean, and that's the big thing about DFS, and a lot of people have the recency bias. You can't have it. You just got
Right.
to throw that stuff out the window and literally start with fresh slate and just kind of look at the stats. I mean, that's the only really thing you can do. You can't be biased.
Right. Yeah, I know. I don't even remember what he ended with. I thought it was maybe like 3, or maybe that's what he had at the end of map 2. I don't know what he finished with, but I want to say it was under 10,
Yeah,
for
it
sure.
was.
So,
Yeah, it
which is
seemed like
pretty
every time I
amazing.
looked, he was like the first guy getting killed. I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah. That is one of the most frustrating things when you're just watching, sweating out your lineups when
And that's
you're
the
the
bad
first.
thing about those guys that are the entry guys that usually go in first trying to get the first kills, like he was doing all day. And sometimes it works out great and they go off and, and they're killing getting 3 or 4 first round kills in the first 7 or so, rounds. And then sometimes it totally goes against you and they die every single time and they have no luck.
Right. Yep. I think you saw that change with like Magisk. I know when Astralis was playing, he was entry fragging so well for
Mm-hmm.
like 2 maps in a row, and then when they played at Nuke, and who did they lose? When they lost to G2, he was like negative 15 on his KD, and it was a lot. It was a lot of that because he was dying first. He wasn't making that entry kill. He wasn't even
Right.
trading. So, then it can go downhill quite a bit there. And I think them and Astralis in general, just losing Glaive and having Magisk become the IGL is definitely going to be a shift for them. So I think the next time we see them with more practice, I think we will see a much better team. Device even on that interview said that, well, we haven't even practiced. At Nuke, usually Glaive is like
Yeah.
integral to how
Right.
we defend the CT side. And but yeah, well, any other last thoughts for you on tomorrow's slate? Anything you want to add before we sign off here?
One question that I've gotten a lot, and I just want to see kind of what your perspective is on this because I think some people have different perspectives on their theory on it. But I get the question a lot of: would you rather have 3 full maps or have a dominant 2-0 sweep as far as scoring goes? And I'm talking about DraftKings here. I mean, I know FanDuel has a way different scoring, and I don't even play on FanDuel.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to get your take on that because I know I get a lot of people that question me, and I just kind of wanted to see what your kind of opinion is on that.
And I play a little bit more cash, but I think either way it's viable. I think if you're punting, say JW in this last slate that I just played, or the last game I just saw, had they swept, or no, they wouldn't have swept. Okay, just take Bymus for example. If they would have swept and 2-0, him getting that 20-point bonus for that third map, and then Nico also getting that 20-point bonus for the third map. Like the cheaper or the more value you're going, the more chance you want that to be a sweep. That's my opinion because the longer the maps go, and same with overtime. Like if I'm hoping for overtime and it's a 1v1, but I know I have the best player, just long term that you should want your better players to play longer. You want your not as good players just to take that 20 points. You know what I mean?
Right, because it's kind of there and it's safe, and you're going to get it, and you have no downside. I
Right.
totally
Like,
agree. And that's kind of what I've told people that have asked me. The thing is especially in GPPs, you want more opportunity. Obviously, you look for the positive variance because 3 maps, your guys are getting that much more opportunity to score points, to get clutches, to get 4Ks, to get aces, whatever.
yep.
But also, there's that retrospect that if you get a dominant 2-0 sweep where you're getting guys or teams that are winning like 16-4, and then you have 2 or 3 guys that are over 20 kills, as long as you nail those guys, that's the hardest part, I think. And that's the only way a 2-0 is really going to benefit you.
Right.
If you get just like a small head-to-head where it's 16-11, 16-12, and your guys are a couple have only reached 20 kills, and then you get the 2-0, you're not going to have enough. There's not going to be enough value there. It's not going to be enough upside.
I do think, yeah,
So
when you're talking about like the Nikos, you prefer 3 maps, you prefer close overtimes. You want that out of your players, certainly, because like you just said, the assists, the first kills, the clutch plays, those fantasy potentials, especially with how DK awards assists. They award assists on a flash, as long as that flash led to the kill. where if you go to hltv.org and you actually track the assists, it won't. That's why the numbers will always be off, because they count, you know, the Molotovs and anything that inflicted any damage or led to the kill. DraftKings awards that to.
Right.
So yeah, my biggest take on that is definitely when you're punting. So like today, you had a lineup with Bymus that I wished it would have just been 2-0, and they actually, before the whole thing started, obviously once they went down 1-0, then I wanted them to get to 3 maps, but typically once that discrepancy of the players, you know, like a Zaiwu and Simple, you want it to go 3 maps because you're going to get the most out of them. They both would definitely average over 15 or 20 points per map. So yeah, I think that's kind of a route that I've gone, you know, but I think that's always a question, because you get like, do you game stack if you think it's going to be really close? Well, if you can pick the top 2 players from each one, just know that they are negatively correlating though as you play them against each other. You know, they have to kill the other player. That's not gonna, you're not gonna both get a 4 kill in one
yeah,
round,
and I've gotten that question a lot too about, you know, running back with your 3-2-1 stacks, of actually running back with a player against either your 3-man or your 2-man. And I always try to tell people that I wouldn't do it, because just like you said, you're kind of negatively correlating those guys, because especially if they get swept, that guy's more than likely not going to score very high, you know.
Right.
And obviously, especially if you're going to get your main stack, you're depending on your team to win. So, you know, obviously, even if you're not wanting the 2-0, you're still wanting them to win. So in that retrospect, you're kind of saying, hey, I'm going to play this guy against my main stack, even though he might be one of their top players. A lot of times it doesn't work out. It does, like you said, it kind of negatively correlates, especially if they're going against a better team. So,
right. Yeah. Well, yeah. And I think we're definitely on the same page there. But Sean, I really appreciate you coming on. Sean at Fantasy Alarms and Fantasy Degens. I'll have their link in the comment section. We really appreciate you coming on. Hopefully we can, you know, hook up again, and when we can actually get our screen up with the prices right, and we can talk through some slates and continue to learn about the map picks. I think as we want to continue to grow CSGO and all the esports, it's great to have people like you that are taking different angles on the sport. So